In a frozen city torn by war, an abandoned alien giantess waits to die until a human soldier risks everything to save her. Their fight for survival will change both their lives forever. Asterisk before we step into this dangerous journey of survival. Loyalty and a love no one thought possible. Make sure you've subscribed and turned on the bell so you never miss the next chapter of our sci-fi tales. And if you enjoy stories where humanity defies the impossible, give this video a candy of FAO joy for you. Kevin, if defies the impossible, give this video a impossible. Like, it helps more than you know. Now, let's begin part 1, the unexpected war. Asterisk snow fell quietly over the ruins of the old amusement park. The Ferris wheels stood like skeletons against a pale sky, their empty seats swaying in the wind. Somewhere beyond the metal wreckage, a low rumble echoed distant explosions, the sound of a war that had spread across worlds. Darius pulled his scarf tighter around his face, his breath turning to mist. He had been sent here to scout the area for survivors, but the Cums were dead, and the sky was turning the strange copper color that meant enemy ships were near. He was about to turn back when he heard it, not the sound of machines, not gunfire. It was a voice, weak, trembling, almost a whisper. Help, please. The sound carried over the wind. Darius stepped over a broken fence and pushed past a half-collapsed booth. Then he saw her. At first, he thought it was just a shadow between the wreckage, but as he moved closer, he realized she was kneeling in the snow, and she was enormous. Her skin was pale with a faint violet glow in the cracks of her wounds. Snow clung to her long platinum hair, and her clothes were torn, barely covering her body. She was clutching her side, blood thicker and darker than human, blood dripping into the snow. Her eyes lifted to meet his, and he froze. They were the kind of eyes you could drown in, huge, luminous, and filled with both pain and fear. Darius had seen alien soldiers before, but never like this. This was no warrior. She was different. Stay back, she whispered, her voice breaking. I'm not breeding material. I'm useless to my kind. They left me here to die. Darius frowned, stepping closer despite her words. I don't care about what they think you are. You're not dying out here. She shook her head slowly. You don't understand. My body is too big, too slow. I cannot give life. My people measure worth in what you can give to the next generation. I can give nothing. The snow fell harder now, the cold seeping into Darius's bones, but he didn't move away. Instead, he crouched down, his gloved hand brushing snow from her arm. Her skin was cold, far too cold. Listen, he said softly. Worth isn't decided by them. It isn't decided by your size or whether you can have children. You're here. You're alive. That's enough for me. She looked at him, confused, as if no one had ever said those words to her before. Her lips trembled, but she said nothing. Somewhere in the distance, the rumble grew louder. Enemy patrols moving through the area. They didn't have long. Darius pulled a thermal blanket from his pack and wrapped it around her shoulders. She flinched at his touch, unused to such care. Can you stand? He asked. She hesitated. If I try, I might crush you. He almost smiled at that. I'll take my chances. It took effort. Every movement seemed to cause her pain, but slowly, with his help, she rose to her knees. Standing was harder. She towered over him, her shadow stretching across the snow. She swayed dangerously, and Darius pressed a steadying hand against her hip. Stay close, he told her. They moved through the ruins, his pace slow so she could keep up. Every few steps she stumbled, and he caught her, feeling the tremor in her body. The more they walked, the more he noticed the way she tried to shield him from the wind with her frame, as if protecting him was instinct. The distant noise of the patrols was growing clearer now. Through the snow, shapes began to emerge. 3 alien soldiers, weapons in hand, scanning the ruins. Darius cursed under his breath. If they spotted her, they wouldn't hesitate to finish what they had started. The giantess looked at him, her eyes steady despite her wounds. "Go," she whispered. "If they see you helping me, they'll kill you too." "Not happening," he replied firmly. Before she could argue, he guided her behind the rusted frame of a broken Ferris wheel. They crouched low, snow gathering in their hair and clothing. The soldiers passed within meters, their voices carrying. In a language Darius didn't understand. When the patrol finally moved on, the alien woman exhaled slowly, her breath clouding in the cold air. She looked at him again, and this time, her expression was unreadable. "You're not afraid of me," she said quietly. "No," he answered. "Should I be?" She tilted her head, almost smiling despite her pain. "Most humans would be." He shrugged. "Then I'm not most humans." For a moment, there was silence between them, just the wind, the snow, and the distant echo of war. Then she spoke again, almost in a whisper. "My name is Serenia." "Darabis," he replied, "and you're coming with me." She hesitated, then nodded. Somewhere in the back of his mind, he knew this was the start of something far bigger than either of them could understand. But for now, all that mattered was getting her to safety. And maybe, just maybe, finding out why, when she said she couldn't give life, he didn't believe her. Snow crunched under their feet as Darius led Serenia deeper into the dead city. The air was heavy, filled with the faint hum of distant war machines. Towers of twisted metal leaned over the streets like the bones of giant animals. Serenia's long strides should have carried her faster than him, but she moved with caution, each step leaving a deep mark in the snow. She kept glancing at the rooftops as if expecting something to jump down. "You've been here before?" Darius asked. Her voice was quiet. "Once, with my unit, we were hunting humans." Darius didn't slow down, but he felt her watching. Him, waiting for anger. He only said, "Guess we're lucky I'm not like most humans." She almost smiled again, but her eyes held shadows. "No, you're different." A loud metallic screech cut through the wind. Darius pulled her into the hollow shell of a collapsed building. Through the broken wall, they saw a patrol drone float past, its red sensors sweeping the street. Serenia held her breath, every muscle tense. The drone paused, then moved on, disappearing into the snow. "That thing was searching for me," she whispered. "They're searching for both of us now," Darius said. They kept moving, weaving between broken cars and fallen street signs. The deeper they went, the more signs of battle appeared: burned-out tanks, craters in the ground, and the frozen shapes of soldiers who had never made it home. Serenia's wounds were slowing her down. She leaned against a rusted lamppost, her breath heavy. "We should stop," Darius said. "Just for a minute." She shook her head. "If I stop, I might not start again." He reached into his pack, pulling out a small container of water and a ration bar. She stared at it, then at him. "You're giving this to me? You need it more than I do." Her large hands closed around the tiny ration bar, careful not to crush it. She ate slowly, as if trying to remember what kindness tasted like. "Why?" "Are you helping me?" she asked finally. Darius didn't answer right away. He looked at her, the towering figure, the strange violet light under her skin, the sadness in her eyes. "Because leaving you here would be wrong. And because I think there's more to you than they see." Her gaze softened, but before she could speak, a sound in the distance made them both freeze, boots crunching on snow. They ducked behind a half-buried car. Through the swirling snow, they saw a squad of alien soldiers moving down the street. Unlike Serenia, these were armored head to toe, their weapons glowing with deadly heat. Serenia's voice was barely a breath. "They're from my clan. They'll kill you? They'll kill us both." Darius's mind raced. They couldn't outrun them, not in her condition. His eyes searched the street until he spotted an old subway entrance. Its metal gates twisted but still partly open. "This way," he said, pulling her toward it. They slipped down the icy steps, the sound of the soldiers fading as they descended into darkness. The air underground was damp and smelled of rust. Their footsteps echoed in the empty tunnels. For a moment, the war felt far away, just two strangers walking through forgotten tunnels. Then Sirenia spoke. "If we survive this, you should know. My people will never forgive me for choosing you over them." Darius looked at her, his voice steady. "Then I guess you're stuck with me." For the first time since they met, Sirenia laughed a low, soft sound that echoed through the dark like a promise. But neither of them knew that. In the shadows ahead, something was waiting, and it had been following them since they left the surface. The air in the subway tunnels was thick and cold, every breath carrying the taste of rust. Faint drips of water echoed in the dark, each one sounding louder than it should. Darius led the way, his flashlight cutting narrow beams through the blackness. Behind him, Sirenia moved carefully, her massive frame brushing the ceiling in places, her footsteps deep and deliberate. It was quiet for a while, too quiet. Darius's instincts began to twitch. Something was wrong. He slowed, lifting a hand to signal her to stop. She froze, her sharp alien eyes scanning the dark ahead. That's when she heard it too, a faint, irregular scrape, like claws on metal. It wasn't coming from in front of them. It was coming from behind. Darius turned, flashlight sweeping the tunnel. The beam caught nothing but dust in the air and the glint of wet walls. Still the sound continued, sometimes close, sometimes farther away, as if whoever or whatever was following them knew how to stay just out of sight. Sirenia stepped forward, her voice low. "That's not a soldier. What is it then?" Darius asked, his tone sharper than he intended. Her gaze didn't leave the shadows. "A hunter. My people release them to track escapees. Once it has your scent, it never stops." Darius's grip on his weapon tightened. "And how do we kill it?" Her answer was slow. "We don't. We outrun it, or we hide." The scrape of claws came again, louder now, followed by a low, throaty hiss that sent a shiver through the cold air. Sirenia moved closer to Darius, her massive hand resting lightly on his shoulder, not for comfort, but for readiness. She was positioning herself between him and the threat. They moved faster, their footsteps echoing down the tunnel, but the sound behind them grew quicker, more frantic, as if the creature could sense their urgency. The faint blue glow from Sirenia's skin lit the narrow walls, and for the first time, Darius wished she didn't shine so brightly. It made them too easy to track. They reached a junction where the tunnel split into two directions. Darius hesitated, unsure which way to go. Sirenia glanced between them, then pointed to the right. "This way. It leads to the old maintenance chamber." They slipped inside the narrower tunnel, its ceiling so low Sirenia had to crouch. The walls dripped with condensation, and the smell of decay was stronger here. Somewhere in the distance, they heard the hiss again, closer, sharper, almost eager. Darius's flashlight flickered, then died. Darkness swallowed them whole. For a moment, only Sirenia's faint bioluminescence kept the fear from closing in. She knelt beside him, her massive form shielding him from the open tunnel. Her voice was calm, but firm. "It will come soon. If I distract it, you run." "No," Darius said immediately. "Not leaving you." She looked at him, her expression unreadable in the dim glow. "You'd risk your life for me?" "I already." He said. The scraping sound became a gallop. Something big was rushing toward them. The ground trembled with its approach. Sirenia's breathing slowed, preparing herself. Darius, heart pounding, raised his weapon toward the blackness. And then it appeared. Two gleaming eyes opened in the dark, low to the ground, glowing like molten metal. Its silhouette was wrong, too many legs, a hunched spine, a mouth lined with teeth that shimmered wet in the dim light. It let out a sound that was Neither roar nor scream, but something in between, something that made even Sirenia flinch. The hunter had found them. The hunter lunged without warning, a blur of claws and teeth tearing through the shadows. Darius fired 3 quick shots, the muzzle flash lighting the tunnel in harsh bursts. But the creature was too fast, its body twisted unnaturally, avoiding the worst of the bullets. The air filled with the metallic stink of its breath. Sirenia moved before Darius could reload. Her huge hand shot out, catching one of the creature's legs mid-swipe. The force of the impact sent a shock through her arm, but she held on, her muscles straining. The hunter hissed and thrashed, its other limbs clawing at her, leaving deep gashes across her forearms. She didn't let go. Move, Darius. She shouted, her voice echoing off the walls, but he didn't move. Instead, he darted to her side, aiming his weapon at the base of the creature's neck. The next shot hit, and the hunter shrieked, twisting violently to get free. It slammed into Sirenia's chest, knocking her back against the tunnel wall so hard the concrete cracked. Darius felt his stomach turn. She was hurt. He stepped between her and the creature without thinking, the glowing eyes now fixed on him. The hunter crouched low, ready to spring. It leapt out before it could reach him. Sirenia's massive arm wrapped around its midsection. She roared, the sound raw and primal, and in one sudden motion, she lifted the creature clean off the ground. Snow and dust fell from the tunnel ceiling as she slammed it against the wall with bone-breaking force. The hunter howled, limbs flailing. But Sirenia didn't stop. Her grip tightened until there was a sickening crack and the body went limp. For a moment, the only sound was both of them breathing hard in the dark. Sirenia dropped the creature, its lifeless body collapsing in a heap at her feet. Darius stepped forward, his eyes scanning her quickly. "You're bleeding." "It will heal," she said, though her voice was weaker than before. He reached up, touching the cut along her jaw, his gloved fingers gentle. "You just saved my life." Her eyes softened, a faint light dancing in them despite the pain. "You saved mine first." They stood there for a moment, the cold air heavy between them. For all her size and power, Darius realized she was shaking, not from fear, but from exhaustion. Without a word, he pulled her hand over his shoulder, letting her lean on him as they started walking again. The tunnel ahead grew wider, and in the faint glow from Sirenia's skin, Darius saw the outline of a massive maintenance chamber. Old equipment and rusted rails lined the walls. It wasn't safety, but it was shelter. They stepped inside, sealing the broken door behind them. Darius set down his pack, pulling out bandages. Sirenia watched him as he began to clean her wounds, his touch careful. "You fight for someone you barely know," she said quietly. He looked up, meeting her gaze. "Then maybe it's time I got to know you." Her lips curved, just slightly, and for the first time since they met, she didn't look like someone who had been abandoned. She looked like someone who had been found, but far above them, in the frozen streets of the dead city. Alien patrols were regrouping, and they were not alone. The maintenance chamber was cold, but it felt like a different world compared to the deadly tunnels outside. The sound of war was muffled here, just a faint vibration in the walls. Darius worked silently, wrapping clean bandages around Sirenia's forearms. His hands were steady, but his thoughts weren't. He kept seeing the moment she had thrown herself between him and the hunter, her massive form shielding him from certain death. Sirenia's eyes followed his every movement. "You treat my wounds like they matter," she said quietly. "They do." Darius replied without looking up. She hesitated before speaking again. "In my world, wounds like these are proof you failed. They don't heal the shame." He finally met her gaze, his expression hard. "Then your world is wrong." Something in his tone made her chest tighten. She turned her face away, but her voice trembled. "Do you know why they left me? It wasn't just because I'm big. My size means I can't match my people's breeding cycles. To them, It means I'm defective, worthless. Darius didn't speak right away. He placed the last bandage, then sat back on his heels. Serenia, you are the farthest thing from worthless I've ever met. Her luminous eyes widened, confusion flickering there. Why do you say that? Because you're strong when you don't have to be. Because you protect people who can't protect themselves. And because you've survived things most wouldn't. She was quiet, studying him as if she were trying to see the truth in his face. You speak as if you've lost something too, she said softly. Darius's jaw tightened. I have. I lost my entire unit last winter. I was the only one left. I've been walking ever since, looking for something to fight for again. Her massive hand shifted toward him, hesitant, then rested lightly on his shoulder. And you think I am that? I don't think, he said. I know. For a long moment, neither of them moved. The cold air seemed to disappear, replaced by the warmth of something unspoken between them. But the world outside wasn't done with them yet. A faint tapping sound echoed through the metal walls, so subtle it could have been the wind, except it came again, sharper this time. Serenia's eyes narrowed. That's not the storm. Darius reached for his weapon. The sound grew louder, traveling along the pipes, circling the chamber. Then, without warning, a section of the far wall split open with a screech of tearing metal. A beam of pale light cut into the room, and in its glow, they saw the outline of alien soldiers stepping through. Serenia rose to her full height, her shadow falling over Darius. They found us. Darius met her gaze. Then we make them regret it. She took a step forward, her expression no longer unsure or ashamed. For the first time since he met her, she looked ready, not to run, not to hide, but to stand and fight beside him. The alien soldiers stepped into the chamber like shadows, their armor glinting in the pale light. Their weapons hummed with deadly energy, the sound vibrating in Darius's chest. Serenia moved first, placing herself squarely between him and the intruders. She was no longer the hesitant, self-doubting figure he had found in the snow. Now she stood tall, her massive frame radiating a quiet fury. One of the soldiers barked something in their language. Serenia didn't answer. Instead, she took a slow step forward, her eyes locked on the leader. Darius could feel the tension building, the air thick enough to choke on. The first shot came without warning. Darius dove to the side as Serenia swung one massive arm, knocking the beam's path away from him. She moved with a speed that defied her size, her hands ripping the weapon from the nearest soldier and snapping it in half like brittle wood. The chamber filled with chaos flashes of light, the sharp clang of metal, the grunts of bodies colliding. Darius fought alongside her, but it was clear this was her battle. Every strike she delivered carried the weight of years of shame, every movement a rejection of the idea that she was worthless. The soldiers tried to surround her, but she broke their formation again and again, using her size not as a weakness, but as an unstoppable force. One soldier managed to slip past her toward Darius. The alien raised his weapon, but Serenia's hand shot out, grabbing the soldier by the throat. She lifted him off the ground with one arm, her voice low and dangerous. No one touches him. Then she hurled the soldier against the wall, the impact echoing like thunder. When the last of them fell, the chamber was silent except for their breathing. Serenia turned to Darius, her body trembling from the effort. For a moment, he thought she might collapse, but instead she knelt in front of him, her enormous form bowing low. I told you I wasn't breeding material, she said quietly, her voice breaking. I told you I was too big, too slow. That I could give nothing. Darius stepped forward, his hand resting against the side of her face. And I told you they were wrong. You've given me everything. Her luminous eyes filled with something deeper than gratitude, something that went beyond the war, beyond survival. If I live through this, I will give you more than they said I could. Months later, when the war ended and the frozen city began to thaw, Serenia kept that promise. She stood beside Darius not as a discarded outcast, but as a partner, a protector, and against everything her people had believed a mother. And in the quiet of their new home, she would sometimes rest. Her massive hands over her stomach, look at him, and whisper with a smile, "My body was never too big. It was just waiting for you."